With the release of Dominaria United, obviously Standard is going to get quite an overhaul, but I wanted to talk about some of the cards that I'm excited to see in Standard, and I'm curious to see how much any of these are going to actually get enough play, and I'm going to let you know which ones I personally am going to play in most of my decks. Hello, Dragon Folk. I hope you're all having a fantastic rest of your day. I know I am having a great one. Hopefully, we're getting this video out before the early release of Dominaria United on Arena, because I know a lot of people are going to be brewing a lot of decks. There's going to be a lot of pack openings and so on and so forth, and I really hope to kind of get this information across before that occurs. But with Dominaria United, you know, we have a lot of cards that are being rotated out in the Standard. And so I know I play Standard along with maybe 5 people on the internet because apparently nobody likes Standard anymore. But I play Standard and I enjoy it a lot. I enjoy the idea behind a rotating format that you consistently have to change and adapt to as new cards come out. So it is very fun. But with all things, right, new sets come out and there are new cards that come with it. And this is my list of, well, I guess it's 11 cards that came out with Dominaria United that I'm excited to put into my decks and help kind of change them up and rotate their playstyle to see what can be played and what will work best for me in the long run, right? So we're going to start off with the first card that I know I'm going to try my darndest to get into a lot of my decks. And that card is going to be Sheoldred the Apocalypse. I expect Sheoldred to get a lot of play in Standard, mainly because she can just sit on the board and gain value. And so you have to make sure that your opponent plays a Fateful Absence or a Infernal Grasp, some kind of immediate kill spell. Otherwise, Sheoldred will just sit there and just be able to gain you life while your opponent loses life. They have Death Touch, so if anybody tries to go in with a 3/3, you just block it and they die. Or if they want to go in with their 7/7, you can block it and it will die. So the defensive maneuver behind a Death Touch and also the addition of gaining and losing life depending on card draw. I can put her in Dimir. I can put her in Orzhov. I can put her in Rakdos. There are so many things I can think of to put her in. And I'm just hoping she does the work that I expect her to. It may be a little slow at first, but I'm curious to see how quickly we can get something like Sheoldred out and how much work she can put in at a very early time. The next card I'm actually very, very excited for is none other than the Silverback Elder. So I like green, and I like big green creature decks. I think it's pretty cool. And with the addition of things like fight rigging, Golgari big stuff is currently being a very big meta that's happening right now. So to see consistent big stuff, creatures is pretty nice in the long run for things like this. I believe Golgari big stuff is going to be pretty powerful. Fight rigging, shakedown heavies. You've got Defiler of Vigor, which of course we'll talk about later. But Silverback Elder is a fantastic card that essentially allows you to do so much with so little. It is a 2 generic, 3 green, so you do need to have some kind of commitment to green, and it's a 5/7 for 5. It's a regular creature, so it's not legendary, and whenever you cast a creature spell, you can choose one of these. You can destroy target artifact or equipment. You can look at the top 5 cards of your library and put a land card from among them into the battlefield tapped, and the rest onto your bottom of your library in any order. In a random order, I should say. And then you also have the choice to gain 4 life. So this allows you access to life gain in things like Selesnya. This allows you to destroy artifacts and enchantments just by dropping a 1-drop creature. So if your opponent's playing a ton of artifacts and enchantments, which with Brothers War and Phyrexia and Dominaria, there's going to be a lot of artifacts. This is a way for you to just pump out creatures, and every time you cast a creature spell, you get that power. And I think it's invaluable in a green deck. And does it cost 3 green specific? Yes. But with things like the card I'm going to mention later, it is going to cost even less to summon this, and you'll be able to gain everything back. Green is going to be so insane. And so most of these are going to be black and green cards, but I do go over a few other things as well. So we're going to go into our next card, which is honestly one of the most... I wasn't sure how excited I was going to be about this card, but after reading it over and over again, I can't seem to not think about ways to use it. Vesuvian Duplimancy. Vesuvian Duplimancy, what it does, it's an enchantment. It's 3 generic and 1 blue. Whenever you cast a spell that targets only single artifact or creatures you control, create a token that's a copy of the artifact or creature, except it's not legendary. This will essentially allow you to, in blue, or whatever mono or multicolored deck you're going to play blue in, allow you to essentially copy your legendary creatures or artifacts easily. There's a ton of low-cost blue stuff that will allow you to change things up, and it makes a copy of it that is not legendary. And you can continue to do this. You can continue to do things like this, even if it's small little things like enchantments, right? Or Azorius enchantments is going to be insane for it. The amount of cards that you're going to be able to make tokens of based on low cost spells that you're going to be playing and targeting things with, I assume you're going to make a lot of tokens, and you're going to be able to kind of like increase your board with the more powerful cards that you want to have. And you can get past that legendary rule by making it so these aren't legendary creatures. So very powerful. I expect this card to probably go for a decent amount on the secondary market, believe it or not. But as far as arena and stuff like that go, this is definitely one to look out for. And I believe blue got quite a solid card for 4. You know what I mean? The next card on our list is actually a Urborg card, which I wasn't actually expecting to get a lot of Urborg stuff in here, but this is Joda the Unifier. So Joda the Unifier, being a legendary creature human wizard, he costs Urborg, which is white, blue, black, red, green. He's a 5/5. And legendary creatures you control get +X/+X, where X is the number of legendary creatures you control. And whenever you cast a legendary spell from your hand, exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a legendary non-land card with lesser mana value. You may cast that card without paying its mana cost, and then put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it essentially allows you to kind of cascade, not cascade, and get something else out to the board that is legendary. I mean, if you mix this thing with something like Mirror Box, which is in the current standard, which gets rid of the legendary rule, you no longer have to worry about doubling up on your legendaries as long as you have Mirror Box out. And the more legendaries you have in your deck, the more this is going to be an insane thing. Because legendary creatures you control get +X/+X for the amount of legendary creatures you control. That includes Joda. Joda's also going to get +X/+X. These guys are going to be unstoppable. And I'm so curious to see how well this is going to work, because it's so hard to do Urborg in standard because there's a lot of cards that kind of hold things back. But with the addition of Domain and the addition of other, additional cards to kind of bring the legends together and have them cost certain manas, I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. Regardless, at the end of the day, this is a very, very cool card for any legendary commander decks or anything of the sort. So I'm curious to see what kind of play Joda's going to have. And I know I'm going to get jealous and I'm going to want to play one. But this is probably one of those ones that I'm going to have to hold off on and see how it works in the meta first before utilizing it to its full potential. So the next one I'm going to do is actually 2 cards technically. And I'm going to use these two in conjunction with one another because I feel like that's their whole thing. I believe that these 2 cards are meant to be played together in the same realm. And this is King Darian, the extra large combo meal, and Queen Elenal of Aruadak, right? These 2 cards I believe, are cards that are going to complement each other very well. And Selesnya being Selesnya, I only imagine that the go wide power is going to be even better now with all of these new cards from Dominaria United. You have rabble rousing. A lot of this stuff is going to be insane. So for King Darian, right, obviously we're looking at things. Other creatures you control get +1/+1. That is creatures in general. It's a lord for everything. So that is very, very powerful in and of itself for 3 mana for a 2/3. And then you can pay 3 generic, a green, a white, and put a +1/+1 counter on King Darian and create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So you get to make a token. It gets to be 2/2 because you do get the +1/+1 on the other creatures. And then you get to get a +1/+1 counter on Darian as well. So that is a 2/2 and a +1/+1 counter for 5. Is it a lot? I feel like it could be less, but I think it'll do, right? I imagine with green being in your color pool, you're going to have the ramp to be able to spend that and use that every turn and not have to worry about attacking with Darian while he continues to stay as a lord on your field. But the cool thing is that at any point you can sacrifice King Darian, and creature tokens you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. Now, that's the cool part about this token thing, is that rabble rousing has been going through a crazy thing in this recent meta with Naya tokens. And Naya tokens has been doing a lot of work. This, in addition to Naya tokens, or even just staying into Selesnya soldiers or Selesnya tokens, this will allow you to essentially, oh, my opponent's doing a board wipe? Oh, no, they're not. Sacrifice King Darian and everything's fine, right? It costs 3. You play another one on your next turn. You're going to want to run 4 of them because that's, or at least 3. I expect it's going to be very, very powerful. And then, of course, tied in with the Queen, we also have the Queen Alanal of Ruadak, who is an elf noble. And her power and toughness are each equal to the number of creatures you control. So the more wide you can go, the more powerful she becomes. And if one or more creature tokens would be created under your control, those tokens plus a 1/1 white soldier creature token are created instead, which means that you get even more. If you're using things like Lunarch Veteran, where every time a creature comes into play, you get a life, you're gaining. If you add that in with rabble rousing and this and anything that would gain any kind of +1/+1 based on, based on strictly life gain alone, you're looking at very powerful things. Voice of the Blessed would have a field day with this stuff. So I'm very curious to see these two in action. Selesnya seems to be doing some pretty nasty things, especially with the few cards that we're going to talk about later on. But with the king and the queen involved here, I know they are, one is an elf and one is a human, but I believe they kind of tie themselves in very well, and I really do enjoy their synergy. The next on the list is something that I actually also have used in one of our previous videos. Actually, these next two I believe I talked about in previous videos, which is, the next one we're talking about is Voldalion Hex Catcher. So I love merfolks, and I'm happy to see that we're getting more merfolk support in this set with Voldalion Hex Catcher, right? It is a lord for merfolks. It has flash. It's a 1/1 for a 1 generic and a 1 blue. And you can sacrifice a merfolk to counter target non-creature spell unless its controller pays 1. So eventually, when we get to Ixalan and things like that, I believe this card is going to see even more play. But for right now, there's not a lot of merfolk in the actual, standard. There's pretty much nothing, actually, as far as what is being printed in Dominaria United, which means that this card is not going to have a lot of play right now. But as we venture on forward, once we get to, there may even be some stuff that comes in through Phyrexian, maybe Phyrexian merfolk of some sort, but that is where you're going to really see a lot of it. I would say Voldalion Hex Catcher is great for Commander and Pioneer right now, and Explorer, but right now in Standard, it's probably not going to see a whole lot of play, but eventually it will. So this is something you're at least going to want to start getting while it's cheap, if it is really cheap. And then as time goes on, you'll see that it'll gain its power as we move closer and closer to maybe even the next Standard. So we'll see. Of course, the next card that I'm super excited for is, again, another green card. We're looking at Defiler of Vigor. We've gone over this in our Defilers, Lords, and Lands video that I'll have up here, I believe. I'll probably put it up that way. But this card by itself is a powerhouse of a card and is going to probably go in every single go wide deck known to man. Any green deck that is go wide, which is most, you're going to get a lot of value out of this card. Not only does all of your green mana for your casting permanents, your permanent casting, become Phyrexian mana, but it's a 6/6 for 5 with trample, and whenever you cast a green permanent spell, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is going to, you amplify, you make that even more with all of these other ones that give all of your other creatures +1/+1 counters. You know, you make sure that you're doubling up on your counters everywhere. With the King and Queen, you're even giving all of your token creatures, all of your human citizens you make from rabble rousing, and any of your soldiers that you make through tokens, you give them all +1/+1 counters each time you cast a green permanent, which is also casting things like Silverback Elder. Or even, small little green stuff, like, using this in elves is a crazy thing. Defiler of Vigor is going to be an insane card. I expect it to be going for a long while, but we'll see what its actual use is in green once we have a better understanding of it. Now, this next one is kind of an interesting card because I'm still not sure how it's going to work in the meta just yet, but I can see it having potential strictly because we do have a lot of legendary creatures in this upcoming set of Dominaria United. So the next card I'm looking at is actually renadrabic of Urborg, right? It is 2 generic, a white and a black, for a 3/3 legendary zombie wizard. So with this being the case, I thought, well, there's not really a lot of zombies in white, and most of them are in black. And so if the only time I'm ever spending white is for this, a lot of the zombies that were printed in Innistrad Midnight Hunt are in blue. So how am I going to make this work as far as zombies go? Because renadrabic has Vigilance and Ward 2, which is fantastic for a 4-drop, right? Other zombies you control have Vigilance as well, which means they don't tap, and that is a bigger to-do about it, right? Having zombies that don't tap, you're allowed to continue to move forward, and you're not going to worry about not having blockers. But here's the kicker, is that whenever another legendary creature you control dies, you create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's not legendary, and it's a 2/2 black zombie in addition to its other color types. Part of me thinks that this is going to be played in some kind of green, black, white deck. I can't remember what that color combination is to save my life, but I have a feeling that this is going to be utilized there, because if you have legendary creatures and they die, you can then bring them back with any of the Golgari stuff that has graveyard recursion, and you won't have to worry about them being the token that is generated becoming legendary, because it's not legendary. The only difference is that it's a 2/2 black zombie. So you're going to want things that are passive effects on the field to die and then have their little thing there. I'd imagine like Lords, for instance, would be great for this. I have a feeling this is probably going to be better in a commander deck than in standard, but again, I'd like to just see where the zombie route is going to go for white and how well this is going to work out in the future. But I am excited for it. I love Orzhov, and I like the idea behind more zombie mechanics, but in white, so curious to see how that's going to work out. The next card I'm talking about is going to be the Anointed Peacekeeper. So Anointed Peacekeeper is actually something that I talked about in a previous video that I made. This is the card that is going to be replacing Elite Spellbinder. Having the ability to cast a 3/3 for 2 and a white with Vigilance, and it has the craziest effect, which I'm not sure whether or not it was a mistype as far as this goes, but when it enters the battlefield, you look at your opponent's hand, then choose any card name. Now that means that you can choose any card name regardless if that card is in that person's hand. So if you know a deck well enough, and you know that there's a card in there that is really annoying that you don't want them to play at its general casting cost. Spells your opponents cast with the chosen name cost 2 more to cast, and then activated abilities of sources with the chosen name cost 2 more to activate unless they're mana abilities. So that is essentially crippling so many decks. I mean, you're talking big decks like even doing Liliana of the Veil and making her cost 2 more, right? The whole reason you play Liliana of the Veil is because it's a 3-cost Planeswalker that gets you a whole bunch of value, but now she's going to cost 5. If you have, any of your defilers are going to cost upwards of 6 or 7. This is going to be a very powerful card, and for 3, as a human cleric, I plan on running Orzhov Clerics, and I'm almost guaranteeing you that I'm going to run this in Orzhov Clerics, because I don't understand how this wouldn't be one of the most amazing cards in white to date. I think that you're going to be able to cripple so many decks, especially running several of them, because they're not legendary, so you can just keep choosing card names and making them expensive. It's insane. The next couple I'm going to talk about is actually, one of them is a enchantment, one of the sagas that are coming with Dominaria United, and they have the read ahead ability, which is a new thing for Dominaria United. This essentially allows you to choose whatever step in a saga that you wish to start with, and then you can go on from there and add your saga counters, normally as they would. But the world spell is something that's very interesting to me, because for 7 mana, 2 green and 5 colorless, you can start at 1 or 2, and that allows you to look at the top 7 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-saga permanent card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So if you start at 1, you can look at the top 7, find something, let's say a Silverback Elder, right? Then the second, you do it again, and let's say you find something like, Cultivator Colossus. Then, on the third one, the final part of this saga, you put up to 2 non-saga permanent cards from your hand onto the battlefield. They just drop down. Now, this card is going to have a lot of play in Commander with a bunch of big spells and a bunch of big creatures you're able to just drop. And this is non-saga permanents. We're talking enchantments, artifacts, creatures, any of these things. You're able to just play from your hand, no costing. No, it doesn't cost you anything to play these, which is very, very powerful. So this is going to be one that is going to be really... 7 mana is a lot, and normally if you're playing against a faster deck, this is going to be harder to get out. But even if you just wanted to start, right? Let's say you dead drew into like 2 big creatures that you don't have the mana for, because they're like 8 cost or 10 cost or something. Just play this at its 3rd saga. You can just drop 2 cards into the field and you'll be fine. There's a lot of versatility with this, and of course, green again being an insane color for this series for Dominaria United. I don't see why they're focusing so much on green. Maybe I'm just focusing on green. Maybe I just like the green cards more, but it's very, very powerful. The final card on our list is Shadowright Priest. Shadowright Priest, I don't believe is going to have an absolute ton of, effect in this meta. I am going to run it because it does give other clerics +1/+1. It is a lord for clerics, but its other ability of pay 3 and 2 black to tap and sacrifice another cleric, you then search your library for a black creature card, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle. So granted, that could be any black creature card. So I'm talking Shieldred, right? Can go pop itself down onto the board. You can even so much as get your a defiler of flesh. You can find another Shadowright Priest and put it onto the board. And then your clerics will get +2/+2. The amount of things that you can find with Shadowright Priest are going to be very good. I feel like this is going to go really well in a demon deck, though. But I also think that as we move deeper and deeper into the Phyrexian arc, and we even move closer and closer into the the addition of going to New Phyrexia again, I believe that this is going to become more powerful as time goes on, so I'm going to want to get some while the getting is good. And that is the end of my list. I know there's a lot of stuff in black, in white, and in green that are getting a lot of really, really good cards. And I hate to say it, but I imagine those colors to be dominating the standard as of right now. I really hope 5-color finds a place, and I really hope it's able to be done. I know we have the addition of the 2-color common lands that do have land types. So like the blue-black common land that comes into play tapped, but it is 2-color, and it does say it is an island and a swamp. That is going to help out with domain a lot because these are the names of, the basic lands. So that'll be a powerhouse that'll be used throughout. I think it's the first time I'm going to see common dual lands utilized in such a way that is going to blow away the competition as far as anything else. But again, I think today, if I recall correctly, the set is going to be out. I hope that by Friday we can pop on and we can actually start talking about the new stuff. We'll do a live stream, hopefully. You can catch it here on the channel. I usually try to do a live stream every Friday. So we'll do a live stream. We'll chit-chat about the Dominaria United stuff. We'll get into Arena. We'll open some packs. We'll have some fun. And I hope to see you all there. But let me know in the comments below what you guys thought about this list. Let me know what some of your favorites are that you're excited for in Dominaria United. And maybe what your least favorite is. And while you're down there leaving that comment, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as well if you have not already. And you can even check the description for a patron link. If you do want to become a patron, that does support the channel a lot. So I thank you so much in advance if you choose to do that. But it is not necessary. You can always just hit that subscribe button and it helps out more than you will ever know. So thank you so much, and I'll see you all very soon. Nerd out.